Let's take a look at how custom connectors work within Logic Apps. There may be times where you're working with Logic Apps and you're trying to interface with an application that does not have an existing connector available. For these occasions, Microsoft has provided the ability to create a custom connector within Logic Apps. A custom connector is essentially a wrapper around a REST API, or if you prefer, a SOAP API. They can be public or private. If you are using private, then also need to be aware that an ISE SKU for your Logic app is required. Once you decide how your API will be presented, you also need to ensure it's secure. Currently, you can secure it using OAuth 2.0, an API key, or by using basic authentication. When it comes time to define your API, you need to provide information so that the Logic app can understand how the API operates and its data structures. There are currently 3 ways we can do this. By providing an open API definition, this is previously known as a Swagger file, by uploading a Postman collection file, or by creating one from scratch. It is worth noting that regardless of how you define the API, Logic App uses Open API once it has been uploaded. I know this is a quick section, but I think this is one where it really helps to see it in action. So let's jump into the portal and create a custom connector for our Logic App. So here we are back in the Azure portal. What we're going to do is we're going to create a Logic App custom connector. And what that custom connector is going to do is going to integrate with the Text Analytics Cognitive Service. So to start, we need to create a Logic App custom connector. Before we do that, before we proceed, what I've done is I've already created the Text Analytics Cognitive Service. So we have this already defined. So now we're going to create the Logic App that's going to integrate with that. So to do that, we go to Logic App Custom Connectors. You can see we don't have one defined today, so let's go ahead and click on Add. And we're going to select the ever popular Skylines resource group. We're going to just give it a name, so we'll just call this Skylines Logic App CC for custom connector. We're going to define a location or leave that as a default of Central US. We're not going to define any tags at the moment. And then let's go ahead and create our custom connector. And this should happen pretty quickly. Alright, so let's go to the resource. You can see we don't really have a lot here. Let's go ahead and click on Edit up top. While this is happening, I'm going to switch to full screen mode, and that makes it a little bit easier to see. Unfortunately, due to the screen resolution, I'm not able to get the full window here. The general steps would still be the same. In order to proceed, we need to provide the Open API file so that the connector knows how to talk to that service. So we've already got that created, so I'm going to go ahead and do an import. I'm going to select the file that we've got here and open. If we come out of full screen mode for a second, we'll go look at Visual Studio Code and we can see the file here. Again, it's basically just, it gives it some description, the path, what it produces, and then some of the information as we need to go through, or what information needs to be provided. We'll look at this a little bit closer towards the end. So let's go ahead and scroll down here. We're going to go to Security, and per the Open API file, we are using API as our authentication. If we select down here, you can see we can use no authentication, basic, or OAuth 2.0. We'll leave that with Open API. And again, I need to go full screen here. And then we'll just go ahead and tab down and then hit Next for definition. And this just gives us a little more information about how the request is, where the request is processing, responses, so on and so forth. But now we need to go through and test this out. So to do that, let's switch to the Swagger editor. And now we need to authorize in order to validate everything works. So to do that, let's go ahead and grab the key that we need from the Text Analytics service. And then we're going to go back here and go to Authorize. Go to full screen again. I'm going to paste that key in. And then we'll go ahead, and I had the tab down and hit authorize or log in, down below. But now you can see we're authorized, and now we're looking basically at a post request. So let's expand this out and take a look, and you can kind of see here's the general body as far as how information is being passed in. And this is all defined within that Open API file. If we scroll to the left here, you can see here we've got our language, we've got the ID, as well as the text to analyze. So language, ID, and text. So let's go ahead then and try it out, and let's provide some values here. So we're just going to use EN US for the language. We're just going to give it an ID of 1 for starters, And let's go ahead and give this a value of Skylines Logic App Custom Connector. So now we've got all this. Let's go ahead and execute. And you can see we got a response of 200. It did go through and run it and gave us a score. So that tells us that our custom connector is working. So now that we have this defined, we can go up here and update the connector, and now it'll go through and save it. So now we have that custom connector. So now if we went back into Logic Apps and looked at connectors, we would be able to see our Skylines Logic App CC available, and that would allow us to integrate with the Text Analytics service.